Hi everyone, this is Todd from One Shot API. This is going to be an end-to-end tutorial on how to run your own x402 facilitator using n8n and the One Shot API community node. First, before we get into the details, let's talk about what a facilitator is. In the x402 payment protocol, a facilitator is a role that helps sellers settle payments from buyers on the target blockchain without the seller having to know a bunch of intricacies about blockchain payments. So really, at the end of the day, a facilitator is a convenience role. Now, a seller could serve as its own facilitator. There's nothing barring a seller from doing their own settlement and their own facilitation, but a facilitator could also be its own standalone, SaaS business that does this for a number of different sellers. So we're going to be standing up a feature-complete facilitator in n8n, and we're going to settle payments on a couple of different blockchain networks. So to get started, we can start by going to the docs. And if we scroll down and click n8n, we're going to be using the n8n platform to host our facilitator. And if we go to the host your own x402 facilitator section, here's a link for us. This link will take us to the One Shot API verified workflow for running a facilitator. This is what it looks like. There's some directions here if you want to check those out. But let's click Use for Free and then copy the template to our clipboard. And let's open n8n and create a new workflow and paste it here. So this is where we'll start. So you've got a few sticky notes in here that gives you some pointers on what's going on in this workflow, but actually this workflow is fairly simple. Really, mostly what it is doing is validation of the request payloads coming from the sellers trying to verify and settle payments. That's pretty much mostly what it does. There's two nodes from One Shot API, a simulate node and a submit and wait node. So this is where the action happens, the blockchain action. We'll start here with setting up our facilitators. So if we click simulate payment, you're going to have to connect your One Shot API community node to your One Shot API account. And you can see I've already got a credential created. And you can create one by clicking the pin icon, and then you need to enter in your API keys and your business ID from One Shot API. So let's do that together quickly. If you log into One Shot API and come down to API keys, create a new API key, give it a name, and then grab the secret, paste those here. And then lastly, your business ID comes from the top of the portal. This business ID here, copy that and paste that here and then save it. And then at that point, you can use that credential across your One Shot API community nodes. Okay, now that we've got our API key and we've authenticated One Shot API, we need to do a little bit of configuration for which payment tokens that we want to accept for payment. So this block right here, look up payment configs and split signature. Let's click on that block. There's a bunch of stuff in here, but mostly it's pretty simple. The only thing that's slightly maybe interesting is this split signature function that we have for you in here. This will take a EVM signature that comes from somebody's wallet and then split it into its R, S, and V components so that the signature can be used with EIP 3009 compatible tokens. We'll get into more details about that in a minute, but this is just a helper function to help you split up that signature so that it can be used with more compatible tokens. So we need to configure which tokens we want to accept. And there's a config block for you here. For each token, the key is an address, and then this address will map to a chain ID, the name of the token, version, what network is it on, and then importantly, for One Shot API, a contract method ID. So if you want to submit transactions to the blockchain via One Shot API, you will need a contract method ID that corresponds to the payment token, and a payment token that has a transfer with authorization function on it. So let's do that real quick. Let's set up PayPal USD on the Sepolia network. let's set this one up. So let's go back to One-Shot API. If we come to My Smart Contracts, you can see I don't have any imported methods yet. So let's go to One-Shot Prompts and import something that we can use. So here's PYUSD Sepolia. And if that doesn't show up as the first thing for you, you can always type in here, PYUSD, and it'll filter it down for you. But let's stick to PYUSD Sepolia. Okay, so we are going to import the transfer with authorization function. And you can see here, if you look at the inputs down here, for PYUSD and for USDC for that matter, they both have functions called transfer with authorization, and they take as parameters the signature split up into V, R, and S. That's why we have that signature splitter helper function in our workflow. So we're going to import this. Let's add this to our contract methods. Okay, if we come back to My Smart Contracts now, you can see there's the method that I imported. If I check on the details, you can see it's been assigned a One-Shot API wallet. So a little bit on that real quick. If you want to relay payments for sellers, whether that's yourself or somebody else, you will need to provision one or more One-Shot API wallets to do so. So if you come to the Wallets tab, you can see I've already provisioned wallets on a number of different networks. Just click Create a New Wallet, give it a name, give it a description, and assign it to a specific blockchain network. And then this will provision a key for you. You will then need to load sufficient native token into that wallet in order to submit transactions on sellers' behalves. So for instance, the Sepolia wallet that I have, I've got plenty of Sepolia ETH and that account to relay a bunch of transactions. So back to My Smart Contracts, click on the details of that function that we just imported. You see this contract method ID, grab that and come back to our workflow, and we're going to put that into contract method ID. There you go. So now we can give this a shot. We're not going to fill out the rest of these just to keep it short. You would do the same procedure for the rest of these tokens on the different networks. Okay, so we're going to run a test endpoint. If we click on the /verify node, this implements your verify route. And depending on whether you're running in a self-hosted n8n node or n8n cloud, this URL is going to look different. But you're going to have both a test URL and a production URL. And you can see here when I toggle back and forth, the only thing that is changing for me is it's changing webhook to webhook-test. So when we're testing it, we're going to be hitting this endpoint. So copy that guy, fire up the listener, and then I have for you over here in a sticky note, here is a curl request that you could use just to try this out to see what it does. So if you take that URL and paste it here in your curl request, you can take the rest of this and then paste it into a terminal to see what happens. So let's take all of this, copy it. You can see we're still waiting for a trigger event. So let's open a terminal and paste that curl request here and then try to run it. And you can see that it ran. We were not expecting it to succeed. We got is valid false. We did not get a reason back, but we can investigate this. You can see here while we were testing it, we hit the verify endpoint, took this route. Let's click on the simulate payment. You can see here that the authorization was expired, so that's why it didn't verify, but that shows you how to run a test run of your facilitator workflow. If you want to make a curl request that will actually succeed, I can show you how to do that right now. We're going to keep most of the details of this curl request the same, but we're going to generate a new nonce and a new signature. And we're going to leave the asset as the address for PayPal-USD on the Sepolia network. You might want to change, if you're going to try this yourself, you're going to need to change the from account. Potentially you might want to change the pay to account. But you can use a tool that we have on the oneshotapi.com website. If you go to tools, this also might be renamed to x402 by the time you've watched this video, but come to tools and this will generate an x402 payload for you. So the token address, let's grab the PYUSD Sepolia address. Let's put that there. Let's pay 1 PYUSD, so that's a 1 with 6 zeros behind it. The to address, you can just send it to yourself. And then for the time window, let's give ourselves some time to actually set this up. So let's just put in like 340 seconds. And then let's create the payment header. And so this is our x402 payment header. This is something that the buyer would send to the seller, and then the seller would decode and then send to the facilitator. So we need to decode this. Just go to a base64 decode page. Paste that in there, decode it, and here's the information that we can use. So let's copy the valid after, paste that there, valid before, be sure to grab the nonce. And then, very importantly, your signature. Okay, and then the last thing before we try this, the pay to address here needs to be the same as the to address that you signed the x402 payment for, so be sure that that is the same. And be sure this address for the asset is the same address you put into the token address in the x402 tool. Okay. So let's restart the verify endpoint, and then let's grab our curl command and try this again. And you can see is valid true. So that one worked well. Now let's try to pay. Let's try to do the real thing. Now we're going to copy the settle endpoint URL, set it to listen, and then let's be sure to change the curl URL to point to the settle endpoint. And then let's copy it. And let's run it. Okay. You can see it running here. The payment was submitted to OneShot API. And depending on the network you're running against, the settlement can take longer or shorter. So on Sepolia, it takes a few seconds to run, but you can see here it finished. And if we come back, we received a payload, a response payload back as specified by the x402 payment protocol. We got success, true, no error, the transaction hash, which we can then use to go look up the transaction on the target network. And if we go to OneShot API and check our transaction history, you can see here is our transfer with authorization. And there is our transaction hash that paid 1 PYUSD from an account back to itself. So this is the end-to-end demonstration on how to set up this facilitator. You can make this a little more fancy if you are going to be running a facilitator for, multiple customers, or if you think you're going to be doing a large volume. You can come to the submit and wait node, and you can add custom memos to your transactions to tell you inside of OneShot what was the payment for. So for instance, I could put as a memo the description of what was paid for, because this is part of the payment requirements specification that's given to the facilitator. I could put as the memo that piece of information. Then if I submit transactions to this facilitator, it will record those in the memo field in OneShot API. Now, to run this, once you've got it configured, okay, so we've got the payment tokens configured, and we have OneShot API pointed at our account and authenticated. If we save this and maybe give it a name, if we come out to personal and flip from inactive to active, n8n will give you a warning. This will now fire production executions anytime somebody hits the webhook endpoints configured in that workflow. So say got it, and I can come in here now and I can say I don't have to click execute workflow anymore. Instead, I can hit the production URL directly. So if I take the production URL, copy that, put it back into my curl command over here, so that now I'm pointed at the production URL. Let's just try it. And you can see false. We didn't expect that one to succeed because we've already used that nonce before. But you can see that it ran without me having to execute a test endpoint. Now you can look at in n8n past executions that have been run against live workflows by clicking on the executions tab here at the top. And if a workflow fails or succeeds, you can see the path that it took. So for instance, here's the one that I just ran that hit the verify route. And if we were to look at the simulate payment block, we can see that there's the error why it didn't validate. So your entire history of sellers hitting your facilitator endpoint, you can come and see that in your executions tab inside of n8n, which makes it really nice for debugging or performance improvements. You want to look at where you're spending the most time, you can come and do that in the executions viewer. If you want to deactivate your facilitator for any reason, all you have to do is come to the workflows tab, deactivate it, and your facilitator will no longer be reachable by anybody with the production URL. It'll be off. And so that is the complete walkthrough on how to set up a x402 facilitator in n8n. It's very easy to import tokens that you want to facilitate payments for, import the transfer with authorization function into your smart contract methods, and then simply update the payment configs with that contract method ID. And you can start facilitating payments on a number of different blockchains with any EIP 3009 compliant token. And if you have questions, reach out to us on Telegram or DM us on X. We'd be happy to help you out. Thanks everyone. Check out other videos coming soon.